Welcome to Pankinen Financial Perspective with Ashton Pankinen from Pankinen Financial Group. Planning for your financial future means navigating challenges like market volatility, inflation, and retirement income. Pankinen Financial Perspective is here to help by addressing common financial concerns, sharing valuable strategies, and exploring ways you can work toward your financial goals. Now let's get started with Pankinen Financial Perspective.
Hello and welcome to Pankinen Financial Perspective. My name is Ashton Pankinen from Pankinen Financial Group. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 952-873-2703 or visit us online at pankinenfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com. And while at my website, click on the radio page to check out past shows and to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or Amazon Music. Also, click the link at the top of my homepage to get the latest retirement guide. Today's conversation is about retirement planning for Generation X, a group that may often feel a little caught in the middle. This generation is approaching retirement age, still working, still earning, and doing many of the right things when it comes to saving. If you've ever said to yourself, I'm contributing, I'm investing, but I want to be more confident I'm not missing something, this episode is for you. During our conversation today, we'll be referencing a U.S. News and World Report article headlined, Here's What Gen X Should Know About Retirement. Joining me today is my co-host, Tony Shore, who plays the role of an everyday listener and isn't afraid to stop me when I start to talk financial jargon.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, Ashton. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited about the show today. A great topic. First of all, I can't wait to dig into this one. I think it's really important. But first, I wanted to ask you, what have you been doing? Have you gotten out ice fishing or gotten away? Do you hunt? What's going on over there?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. It's been too cold to really play outside with the kids or anything like that.
Sure
but we did go. My twin sister, I have a twin sister, lives in Hudson, and we got over there to see. She's got a new baby, and so got to visit our new nephew and niece over there, and so that's kind of been some indoor activities, let's put it that way.
I always forget she's your twin because she's very pretty and she looks nothing like you, which is fortunate for her.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing, right? I'd still get every once in a while. Are you guys identical? And I have to explain to the people that missed out on biology class how that works.
Yeah, you can say no. She has hair.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's I'm giving you a hard time, Ash.
No, that's okay. Yeah. What about you, Tony? What have you been up to?
Well, I'll tell you what, I have been avoiding going outside. Last Friday or a little over a week, well over a week ago, I got up and it was negative 22 in Stillwater, where I live. Yep. And then just a couple of days ago, I got up, it was negative 13 when I got up. Yesterday, it was negative 3 when I got up. Today, it was like negative 4 or 5. So I'm like, I'd like to wake up and have it be in the positive. Is that too much to ask?
You know what they say, Tony? It's not the heat, it's the humidity. That'll get you.
It is the humidity, although we're running a humidifier in my house right now because my skin and hands have been so dry. It's not the heat, it's the humidity.
Especially this time of year, Tony.
Yeah, this time of year. Sure. Well, it's when we have this January, and we talk like this is a big deal, but again, it's January in Minnesota, people. Yep. I mean, this is kind of the deal, but it's been cold for a long time. Usually we have bouts of these, cold temps, but wow, it just seems like it's been really cold for a really long time. Yeah. And as I get older, the question pops up, now, why do I live here again? But then I remind myself, summer and spring and fall in Minnesota, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Right.
Yeah, it's great. The changing seasons.
And the people in Minnesota are so great. I mean, there's so much to love about Minnesota. I mean, we hear negative things and, our state's been in the news, but just so many things to love about Minnesota. There's so many great people here. And I've lived And I've traveled a lot for my job, and in radio, I lived and worked in Southern California for a while. I lived in Nashville. I lived here, and the people here are just so much better.
Well, that's
No
'cause I'm
offense to
Tony,
those.
right?
Well, it has a lot to do with you. Yeah. It has a lot to do with the entire Pankinen family. Makes it better, of course. But yeah, I mean, there's so many out. If you love the outdoors, Minnesota is great.
I always talk about the change of seasons, variety is the spice of life. So
Yeah, we have all 4 seasons here, which is nice.
Yeah.
Now, winter might be 6 months, it might be half the year, but
it might feel like 6 months. It's really not that long.
if you look at when the first signs of cold and snow come to the last. I mean, I remember having a blizzard the first week of May a few years back, right?
Yeah, and tax day we had it a couple of years ago too. So
yeah, I mean April and May. Yeah, that's rough, and especially in our state. Though the funny thing is, and I pointed out this time of year to people, is that there's 3 things that I always shake my head at that I can't believe we own as Minnesotans. I mean, I don't actually own any of these 3 things right now, but swimming pools, convertibles, and boats.
Oh yeah.
Now boats. I heard that Minnesota, there are enough boats owned in Minnesota that it's basically 1.5 boats per person per capita of Minnesota. So a lot of people do own boats, and we have 11,200 and some lakes,
some odd lakes.
Yeah. So I get the boats, but boats, convertibles, and swimming pools you can only use like 2-3 months out of the year here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty tough. That's tough. But that's how committed we are. Everybody still owns a boat. And I don't own a boat because Chuck Lucius, who owns Gradient Investments and Gradient Financial, told me once, Tony, you don't need to own a boat. You just need a friend who owns a boat.
Yeah. And Chuck probably owns a boat, so I
go, Chuck, don't you own a boat? And he goes, well, actually, I own a few of them, but no. But before he asked, no. I'm like, great, thanks, Chuck, for the advice. So anyway, well, let's dig into the subject. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, when we talk about Generation X, we're generally referring to people born between 1965 and 1980. And that group covers a wide range of financial situations. Some are high earners, some are business owners, some are in the middle of their peak earning years, and then others are still trying to make up ground from setbacks along the way.
So very different stories financially, but they're all headed toward the same phase of life, right?
Yeah, exactly, Tony. And what's interesting is regardless of income or net worth, we tend to see the same 3 retirement challenges that show up again for Generation X.
Yeah. And what are those 3 challenges then? Yeah,
they're risk, fees, and taxes.
Which that sounds straightforward, but I'm guessing it's a little deceptive.
Yeah, it can be. There isn't always an obvious problem. Market risk can feel manageable until there's a downturn. Investment fees can be internal and quietly add up over time. And then taxes often don't get serious attention until someone is already retired. And then their options are more limited.
Yeah, so you have to watch out for that. And even though people arrive at retirement from very different places, they can run into the same trouble spots, right?
Yeah, that's right. And over the rest of today's show, we're going to walk through each of these areas, talk about what Generation X can do and can consider paying attention to now while there's still time to plan. One of the biggest shifts people face as they move towards retirement is the role of a budget. And honestly, a workable budget becomes more important in retirement than it ever was during your working years.
Yeah. And that sounds a little backward maybe to some people, but that's right?
Yeah, it does. And, but here's what we see in real life. Many Gen Xers have been earning paycheck consistently for decades. Money comes in, bills get paid, savings happens in the background, and then spending never really has to be closely examined.
I think when that paycheck stops, there's suddenly a spotlight on where that money's actually going.
Yeah, and financial planners often say that this is one of the biggest struggles they see with Gen X clients. People simply don't have a clear picture of what they spend on a month to month because they've never had to. And when I sit down across the table from a client and ask them that question, it's surprising how many don't actually know what their monthly budget is. Yeah,
I know. I've been guilty of that, but now my wife and I sit down once a month and go over it. And it makes us, I tell you what, that open communication about where we're at, it helps us. It helps us save money. We feel better about it. But going over that monthly budget can be uncomfortable when you get retirement gets closer, right?
Yeah, very much so. And preparing for retirement isn't just about those account balances. It's also about preparing for some hard decisions. And a big part of that starts with taking an honest look at that spending.
Yeah, you got to do it. And because the lifestyle you have while you're working may not automatically translate into retirement.
Yeah, that's right. Some people discover that maintaining their current lifestyle in retirement may not be realistic without adjustments. And those adjustments are easier to make when you have time and not when retirement is already underway.
Yeah. And I think housing plays a big role in that conversation too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. For a long time, people assumed that downsizing or moving in retirement would be an easy lever to pull. But with today's home prices and mortgage rates, that option's not as practical as it once was. Again, we look at, people think of downsizing, but then they end up buying something newer, and then the price, might even be more than their current house. And so we want to understand that cash flow. It's even more critical. Knowing what's essential, what's flexible, and what trade-offs might be required gives people in control instead of surprises. Another important milestone for Generation X is that 59 and a half, because that's when retirement accounts become accessible without early withdrawal penalties. It's also the age at which you can do in-service withdrawal, get something over to a financial advisor who's going to watch a little more closely. And with traditional pensions becoming rare, most Gen Xers have been responsible for building their own retirement savings. So for many people, workplace plans like 401ks and then their individual retirement accounts will serve as their primary income source in retirement. While withdrawals from 401ks and IRAs are allowed at that age without the 10% penalty, deciding when to start taking money out and how much to withdraw, that's where things can start to get complicated.
Because it's not as simple as looking at the account balance, is it?
Right. An account value doesn't automatically translate for people into monthly income. People often don't know what money really means in terms of cash flow and that they can rely on year after year in retirement.
Yeah. And that's where mistakes can happen, right?
Yeah, they can. Taking too much too early can put a long-term security at risk. If withdrawals aren't coordinated with taxes, market conditions, and longevity expectations, there's a chance of running out of money later in retirement.
Which is the exact opposite of what retirement savings are supposed to do.
Yeah, and that's why having a withdrawal strategy can matter. The goal isn't just access to it, it's sustainability. Understanding how much you can reasonably take, how often, and from which accounts can make a meaningful difference over time. And that's when working with an experienced financial advisor can be helpful, not to guess, but to model different scenarios and build a plan that aligns with income needs and those long-term goals.
Yeah. Before we keep going with our conversation today, it's been a good one so far. Ashton, let our listeners know how they can schedule a complimentary consultation, no charge, no obligation, to ask questions or get more information, maybe get a second opinion on where they're at.
Yeah, the best way to do it is to give our office a call. That number is 952-873-2703. Again, that number is 952-873-2703. And if it's outside business hours, just leave us a message and we'll get back to you. Or you can visit our website, pankoninfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com. And scheduling a consultation only takes a few minutes. And we're always happy to work around your schedule and excited to hear from our listeners.
Now, let's get back into what Gen X needs to know about its impending retirement. Hey, that's me. I'm Gen X.
That's you.
Yeah. Now I'm on the early end. I'm on the older end of Gen X, I should say. Yeah. But I'm still there. I'm still there.
Well, and I'm a millennial, but I consider myself more of a Gen Xer just because of the way. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm a millennial, but
right.
And so not everyone's looking to tap into that retirement account at age 59 and a half. In fact, many people in Generation X are still very much in that saving mode as they head into their early 60s. And that article adds, that thanks to changes introduced in that Secure 0.20 Act, there's a unique opportunity during that window to specifically between ages 60 and 63.
I think that's what they call the super catch-up, right?
Yeah, that's what it is, Tony. For a long time, workers 50 and older have been allowed to make additional tax advantage contributions to employer-sponsored retirement plans like 401ks, IRAs, simple IRAs, and those standard catch-up contributions many people are familiar with.
Yeah. But this takes it a step further, I think.
Yeah, it does. You nailed it there, Tony. Starting in 2026, workers 50 and older can contribute an extra $8,000 on top of that regular contribution limit of $24,500. But for those who are 60, 61, 62, and 63, the government actually allows an even higher amount than that $8,000, what's referred to as the super catch-up contribution of $11,250. So between the regular limit of $24,500 and the $11,250, you can put $35,750 into retirement accounts.
Yeah, there you go. And so for a short window, people can put away even more.
Yeah, but there is some important caveats. First of all, not all retirement plans are required to allow super catch-up contributions. So it's critical to check with what your specific workplace plan actually allows.
There's also a tax wrinkle here, though, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. If you earn more than $150,000 in wages during the year with that employer, their catch-up contributions must be made into the Roth account. So that means those contributions won't be tax deductible today.
Yeah, but the trade-off is on the back end, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. While there's no upfront tax deduction, those Roth contributions can potentially be withdrawn tax-free in retirement, assuming the rules are followed. For some people, it could be a meaningful advantage, especially when they're trying to manage future tax exposure.
So this isn't automatically good or bad, then. It depends on the situation.
Yeah, that's the key point. These higher contribution limits create opportunity, but only if they're coordinated within a income, tax planning, and retirement timing. It's worth noting that these higher catch-up contribution limit for between age 60 and 63 also apply to those simple IRA plans.
Which it makes this a short but yet important planning window.
Absolutely, Tony. And this is one of those moments when understanding the rules ahead of time matters. Missing the opportunity or using it without strategy can have both long-term consequences. Moving on, let's also remember that there's also long-standing assumption that once people retire, their taxes automatically go down. Less income means less tax, or at least that's how conventional wisdom frames it.
But that assumption doesn't always hold up, especially for Gen X.
Correct. Many Gen X retirees may actually face higher taxes than they expect, and in some cases higher than what they would be paying while they were working.
Well, what do you think is driving that?
Yeah, good question, Tony. A big part of it comes down to where their retirement savings are held. For decades, most Gen X workers were encouraged to save traditional tax-deferred accounts like 401ks and IRAs.
And that makes sense on the surface because you do get that tax deduction when you contribute.
Yeah, you do, and that feels good at the time, but the trade-off is on the back end. Every dollar withdrawn from those accounts in retirement is generally taxed as ordinary income. And if most of your savings are in tax-deferred accounts, that can create a pretty significant tax bill later.
Well, so the risk isn't just market risk, it's also tax risk.
Yeah, that's a very important distinction. No one knows what future tax rates will be or how tax laws may change over time. Yet, when all of your retirement income comes from tax-deferred sources, you're essentially committing to pay whatever rates exist down the road.
Because those are joint accounts with Uncle Sam, which unfortunately means the IRS gets a say in your retirement income.
Yeah, in a way, yes. And, and that uncertainty is what makes tax planning such a big issue for Generation X. The goal isn't to avoid taxes entirely, it's to avoid being surprised by them.
Yeah, there you go. What are some of the ways people can address that?
Yeah, one strategy that we look at is, shifting future savings towards Roth-style accounts when appropriate. And again, it's an individual basis that we look at these things. But Roth contributions don't provide tax deduction today, but qualified withdrawals in retirement can be tax-free.
That means you're trading today's deduction for tomorrow's certainty, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. In addition, some people choose to convert a portion of their existing traditional IRA into Roth accounts over time, paying taxes now in exchange for tax-free income later.
And it sounds appealing, but also it sounds like it can get complex. And I think that's where you come in.
Yeah, it can be. Roth conversions aren't a one size fits all solution. Timing matters, income levels, tax brackets, Medicare considerations, all come into play there. And long term goals all factor into what approach makes sense. Again, it's a customized plan for each individual. One thing that I've noted and done with some clients here with that Big Beautiful Bill Act in 25, 26, 27, and 28, anybody 65 and older, there are some income limits, get an extra $6,000 deduction each. And so that might make sense to do a Roth conversion with that extra deduction, just depending on your situation.
So the takeaway isn't to just stop using traditional accounts, but be intentional, maybe use both.
Yeah, you got it. The key diversification is not just investments, but the tax treatment. Having a mix of taxable, tax deferred, and tax-free accounts can give retirees far more flexibility and control. I always sit down with my clients and say, hey, it's nice to have a pool of both tax-free and tax-deferred assets to give us that income flexibility in retirement. Another milestone that's coming up quickly for Gen X is Social Security eligibility. For some members of this generation, that first window opens very soon. At age 60, unmarried widows and widowers may be eligible for survivor benefits, but most Gen Xers at age 62 is the earliest point which they can begin receiving that monthly Social Security benefit.
And I know 62 is a very popular age to claim. And also that's the average retirement age for some people or when people want to retire anyway is 62.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's also misunderstood. One of the biggest misunderstood decisions in retirement planning. Claiming Social Security comes with trade-offs that last for life.
Yeah, okay. I know it does, but for our listeners out there, what kind of trade-offs are you talking about?
Yeah, starting benefits at age 62 can permanently reduce your monthly payment by as much as a third compared waiting until full retirement age. And if you're still working and earning above a certain income threshold, your benefit can temporarily be reduced even further.
Yeah. So timing really matters. If you're going to keep working or earning a steady income, you probably don't want to file. And if you have a spouse, you might not want to lock in that lower rate because you might be leaving your spouse in a bad situation if something could happen to you. So timing is huge.
Absolutely. And for Gen Xers born before 1960 or later, full retirement age is now 67. And that's when you're entitled to that full benefit without any reduction.
Yeah. And waiting longer can increase that benefit, right?
Yeah. And sometimes claiming that if some delays in claiming beyond that full retirement age, their benefit increases by about 8% every year up until age 70. And after that, there's currently no financial advantage to waiting, and you're forced to turn it on at that point.
Yeah. So the decision isn't just when can I claim, but when should I claim?
You got it. Social Security should be coordinated with other income sources, taxes, health considerations, and longevity expectations. Once you start, the decision is difficult to undo, which makes planning ahead especially important. Another area that often catches people off guard, Tony, is healthcare in retirement, specifically Medicare. Even though full retirement age is age 67, Medicare eligibility begins at age 65. And while Medicare provides broad coverage, it doesn't cover everything.
Yeah, and there are still costs involved with Medicare that you have to pay out of pocket, and I think that's a surprise for a lot of people.
It is. Medicare typically includes deductibles, copays, and coinsurance, and they're important services that it doesn't cover at all.
Yeah, hearing, vision, and dental, three of the big ones. Now,
for sure.
Advantage plans, if you have a Medicare Advantage or a supplemental, they may cover that, but Medicare itself does not. But the big one is long-term care. Medicare does not cover that, and a lot of people think it does.
Yeah, and that is the big one. Medicare does not pay for those ongoing long-term care costs like assisted living, memory care, or just nursing home care. Those expenses must be covered through a personal savings or separate coverage, a separate plan of some sort like long-term care insurance, or we've got some life insurance policies that have long-term care riders on them as well.
Yeah, I know now they have these hybrid policies that are really good for long-term care where you can even tap into the death benefit early if you need it for long-term care. So
exactly.
Healthcare planning isn't just about doctor visits. You really need to make it a part of your overall financial plan, don't you?
Yeah, correct, Tony. It's about protecting against costs that can disrupt your retirement plan. even if they're not anticipated.
Yeah. There's also an opportunity here with health savings accounts, right?
Yeah, definitely. Workers who have access to qualified high deductible plans, so you have to have a high deductible health plan, may be eligible to contribute to a health savings account, or HSA for short. These accounts offer a unique combination of tax benefits. One of the things they do is those contributions might be tax deductible. Money can grow tax free. And then if withdrawals are used for qualified healthcare expenses, they're also tax free. So unlike flexible spending accounts or FSAs, the HSA balances roll over year to year.
Yeah. So you can put money in there, and if you leave it and don't spend it, it can grow, and then you can use it during retirement. It goes in tax-free, grows tax-free, and comes out tax-free. That's a unique account. So I think that's really good, that it can be a powerful tool.
It can be, especially for Gen Xers who still have time to fund them strategically. When it comes to investing, Generation X is unique. This group has largely built wealth through the stock market.
Yeah. So there's often a lot of confidence there.
There is. And, confidence isn't a bad thing. Staying invested can make sense. The challenge is making sure the strategy evolves as people approach retirement.
Because your risk changes.
Correct. The years just before and just after retirement are especially sensitive to market downturns. You don't know when those down years will happen, but their impact may be magnified if you're making withdrawals at those times.
So what does doing it right look like?
It often means diversification beyond pure growth. Some people choose to move a portion of their savings into more stable assets like bonds, treasuries, certain annuity structures with guarantees to help create, sometimes a volatility buffer.
A volatility buffer. I like that. Yeah. So during bad market years, you're not forced then to sell investments at a loss.
Yeah, bullseye there, Tony. Having non-market-based assets available for income can help retirees avoid locking in losses during downturns.
And this whole thing, it's not just about returns, it's about efficiency, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Tony. Reviewing investment costs is one of the simplest ways to improve outcomes without taking on more risk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you've got changes happen, marriages, births, deaths, children, divorce. You've got to keep up with this, right?
Yeah. That's a good time retirement is a natural checkpoint to visit whether your plan still reflects your wishes.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is great. We've covered a lot today. Is there anything you want to add before we have to go?
Again, it's that time of year that tax planning comes into play. If you have questions about retirement, your financial strategy, visit our website, pankoninfinancial.com. That's PANKONIN financial.com. Call my office, 952-873-2703. Again, that number is 952-873-2703. We'd love to help you protect your savings and feel confident about the road ahead.
All right. Sounds great, Ashton. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of the Pankonin Financial Perspective with our host, Ashton Pankonin.
Thank you for joining us for Pankonin Financial Perspective. Don't head into retirement without a plan for both your finances and your health. For more information, contact Ashton Pankonin at Pankonin Financial Group at 952-873-2703 or visit pankoninfinancialgroup.com. Join us again soon for another episode of Pankonin Financial Perspective. Advisory services are offered by Ashton Pankonin LLC DBA Pankonin Financial Group, an investment advisor in the state of Minnesota.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.